Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
I didn't think the pain from the shingles rash would affect simple, everyday tasks like bathing, getting dressed, or even walking around. I was wrong. Though not everyone at risk will develop it, 99% of people over the age of 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time. I developed it, and the blistering rash lasted for weeks. Don't learn the hard way, like I did. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Bring a date, your squad, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Welcome back to DOCUFILES. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Paige.
Our documentary for next week is called The Inventor Out for Blood in Silicon Valley. It's a film on HBO or HBO Max, whatever they're going by these days. Be sure to watch it to join in on the conversation. But this week, we are watching a Netflix documentary called The Crash. Whew, this one was heavy.
This one was so heavy. And like a lot of these documentaries do, it leaves you with a lot of questions. The detective even says in the documentary, there is a black hole in this case, which is when they're physically in the car, leaving the house, through when the crash occurs at 5:36 a.m. So it's about a 5-6 minute span of a black hole. And even the detectives still have questions about it. And the only one who might really know is Mackenzie and the two boys that aren't here to tell us.
Here's a little bit of background for those who may have watched and forgotten or who haven't watched. The Crash examines the case of Mackenzie Shirilla. She's an Ohio teenager who was convicted after driving literally 100 miles per hour into a brick building in 2022. The crash killed her boyfriend Dominic and her friend Davion. What initially appeared to be a horrific accident turns into a murder investigation where prosecutors were arguing that the crash was intentional, and they point to a lot of very damning evidence that obviously proves their point because she was convicted.
I gave this one 2 watches because one watch left me feeling like I wanted more details. So on my second watch, I was kind of thumbing through, taking some more notes, and it just is hard for me to come to the conclusion that she did it. And I know that there are some people listening that are screaming at the speakers going, are you out of your mind? Yes, she did, because the discourse online is very much so as well. And I'm not saying she didn't do it because she was convicted. She decided to take an option where she did not have a jury, which she was 17 at the time of the crash, a few days shy of 18. So I guess she got that option for whatever other reasons. And I wish I knew what had been presented to the judge. Obviously, we have certain details from the documentary, but like the evidence and the details really, really proved to the judge that she did it. Because yes, we have this black box from the car and other things that show what the car was doing, but none of it to me tells us why. Why and when, for example, was the slipper trapped underneath the pedal? There are still so many questions. And again, the only ones who may really know the answer are either not here with us any longer or are claiming they don't remember anything from that 5-6 minute span. So to me, from the documentary, I'm not left with enough info where if I were, for example, on a jury, which again, she didn't have, she chose not to, I wouldn't feel like there was still too many unanswered questions to comfortably convict somebody. But again, this is a documentary. This is not the court. So the court convicted her and they had what they needed in order to come to that conclusion. So I want to respect that. But I'm like, what?
I think I'm on the side of the people that are probably listening thinking they know for a fact that she did it. Was it premeditated? Probably not. I think it was in the moment she decided in her emotional dysregulation to be destructive. It really just feels like this nightmare of a story. And I feel like she's not this criminal mastermind. She's just someone who's like emotionally incapable of handling a fight or any sort of rejection. Because we do know that her and Dom, her boyfriend of 4 years, I believe, were very hot and cold. And they would break up, they would yell, they would have all out fights, they would be horrible to each other. And a lot of it was from her end. I just feel like she is presented as someone who is just so emotionally immature. And granted, she was 17 at the time. She has no boundaries from her parents. She's completely enabled by her parents. She's gotten away with so much that I don't think that she had the foresight to think, oh, something really bad could happen and they would die. You know what I mean? I think she wanted to do something drastic to prove a point, but I don't think she thought that she would kill her boyfriend and their friend.
See, I wonder, because of the teenage mind, I'm with you. And this is part of what I was saying. And I love it because Natalie and I often have different ways of getting there, but like we'll share a core value or opinion. And in that, I agree with you. I don't think whatever happened was premeditated. And that's where I go to the idea of murder or whatever questioning. But I also wonder, because we've got a teenage brain here. Again, she was still 17, a few days shy of 18. I have to wonder if it's that thing of not understanding finality the way that teenage brains do not understand finality.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I do wonder if this was in an emotional state, or I should say done in any kind of emotional state, which her friend Rosie says there was no fighting, there was no tension, which includes Dom and Mackenzie that evening, which, by the way, was the night of Mackenzie's graduation along with Davion and Rosie's. So again, no fighting, no tension that night. And one of the videos we see that shows tension from a time before it's from Dom. He's recording in the apartment that Mackenzie actually, after graduation, moved in with him at 17 years old. Right after graduation, she moved in. He's recording and she's kind of screaming. You know, of course she does. She sounds nasty. It sounds like a toxic fight. I'm left wondering if this moment, because Dom's turning his phone on at just the right time, maybe, if this isn't retaliatory abuse, let's call it, on Mackenzie's part, kind of screaming at him through the door, threatening to leave, like, open up the door, because it's like, she's petite. He being 3 years older could have easily, you know, with her popping off inappropriately in the apartment, picked her up, put her outside and locked her out. Like locking somebody out of what is their home if she was already living there at the time, which it does seem like it's a time where she was perhaps living there, or she basically lived there before she moved in officially anyways. That is abusive, to lock your partner out of the house and to leave them standing there. However, the other side of the coin is Dom could have just been protecting himself and getting himself away from a situation in his own home. So I see both sides, but I question the fact with it filming, the reason behind that was, again, the screaming, yelling on Mackenzie's side, retaliatory abuse, or was she really being inappropriate the entire time? Dom was innocent in that moment and was filming to protect himself. Both are valid. Both are totally an option. It's, again, one of those things with this documentary and in that relationship that we're left wondering. So all that to just bring up of like, what was their relationship? And did something pop off so quick that, yeah, she decided like, I'm going, you know, murder-suicide here. We're going to drive and ultimately kill all three of us. I do wonder if Mackenzie did it on purpose, which, I mean, it's very likely. She was turning so slowly from the first street onto Progress Drive to then see on the next camera footage them going 100 miles an hour. is a stark difference. So something very drastic did happen, whether that was the accelerator all the way down, which the black box says.
The prosecutor does say that there was no movement off the pedal. The pedal was down to the floor. It was at max speed, but there was movement that was noticed on the steering wheel, as if Dom and Davion were reaching, or someone in the car was trying to adjust the steering wheel.
And it went into neutral as well, once or twice.
To me, that says, all right, there was something happening in the car that we will never be able to truly know the answers to, because she says that she doesn't remember. She says that she has absolutely no memories of what occurred in that car until she woke up in the hospital.
She says, according to her mother, which her mom and dad aren't going to be the most credible in this sense, in my opinion, even though I think that they were really thinking they were doing something with this documentary to prove innocence or not, to tell Mackenzie's side of the story. I don't think they would have joined if not. We gotta just know that they're on their daughter's side, which I think everybody deserves somebody on their side. So anyways, taking with a grain of salt, her mom says that Mackenzie remembers leaving the house, turning on to Progress Drive, then waking up at the hospital, so to speak, or wherever wake up was.
There's a lot of discourse online about her parents and their enabling behavior, the emotional immaturity within that household, their lack of boundaries, their permissiveness. To be honest, I'm shocked that Mackenzie and her parents chose to participate, because it didn't help any of them in the court of public opinion.
I don't think it did, but here's what it did do, because I'm pretty sure that there's going to be an appeal. It got people talking about it.
Mean, there already was an appeal that got dismissed.
I think there's going to be another. Obviously, you get more than one shot. And this just got people talking about the case again. This got the public discourse going. Because you go on TikTok, there are so many people talking about her guilt and conviction. And there are people out there with videos showing, yes, she did hit the brakes. Look at boom, boom, brake, boom, boom, brake. And then there's this inappropriate discourse going on of people messing with the audio to clarify it. And it sounds like they hear no and stop. And like people are talking about what they hear. It's like you're hearing the car whizzing by. Okay. You're hearing the car whizzing by. That's all it is. And the audio is sounding, as you manipulate it, it's sounding like you're hearing words through the window. You're not hearing them scream through the window. I just have a really hard time believing those particular videos. There are also a lot of comedic videos that are referencing Mackenzie in her interview at the end of the documentary.
Okay. You know, she was not expecting them to show that. And for our listeners, do you want to describe what happened? Just in case there are people who didn't watch but are still wanting to be in the know.
She is sitting at a table and she is growing up, but her voice is quite a bit deeper. I mean, we're talking 3 years going on 4 years now. Like her voice being that starkly deeper is interesting. The dialect is what I call like, and I mean zero disrespect, but the dialect of which she's speaking is very like jailbird accent. And a lot of people had a lot to say about that. But the biggest piece, she didn't sound like that before. She did not have a little bit of like a jailbird affect, I think is the word I was looking for, over dialect. Anyways, one of the other biggest things that people
she didn't sound like that before
on is that she looks over to somebody off camera who happens to be her lawyer and questions how she did, how it sounded, and it's basically describing that she wants to make sure to emphasize her innocence and questioning whether or not she did a good job at that.
When that section aired in the documentary, I just know that she was not expecting them to include that footage, because it shows that she is being calculated with her presentation in what she says and how she says it. And to me, someone who is full of remorse, who is devastated by their actions that have killed two people that are dear to her, I would think that she would be able to speak from the heart. And obviously, I know this is a very sensitive situation and you would be smart to have your lawyer with you. But you should be able to talk about how you regret what happened, even if you don't remember, without having to say, oh, right, did I hit this point, this point, this point, this point? What do you think? How did it sound? It just was a little bit shocking.
Great point. And I think this goes back to show somebody who is a little messy, somebody who is a little young, and this perhaps, well, not premeditated, something still must have happened. So I guess I take back the idea of like, quote, not guilty. And I guess what I really do mean is wasn't necessarily completely premeditated. And that's where I'm going to stand there. Also, in relation to this idea of being Mackenzie, being a little messy, have you seen any of the videos, Natalie, on TikTok of her calls from jail to her mom speaking what her mom refers to as gibberish, which I did used to speak back in the day, but not in the same way Mackenzie does, but I can understand it a little bit. When it's slowed down, I can understand it.
Stop. No. Her mom is speaking gibberish to her in these.
Vice versa.
Oh my gosh.
She's gossiping.
That's not what I thought you were going to bring up, but like, they're too much.
They're too much. And listen, Mackenzie's a very lucky girl. Her parents love her very, 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 very much. And again, I think everybody deserves that.
Well,
look, if there is one thing about me, it's that I hate waiting. Hold music, triggering. If it was a person, they would definitely be blocked. Earnin, on the other hand, would not be blocked. Earnin is an app, not a bank, that allows you to get up to $150 a day, up to $1,000 between paychecks. Tips are optional, and standard transfers take just 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers start at $3.99 and cap at $5.99. 5 million people are already using Earnin. Time just feels different when you're not waiting around to make moves. Getting paid twice doesn't make money scarce. It just feels that way. And with Earnin, it doesn't have to be like that. If you think about it, it is kind of odd that we have to wait to get the money that we've already earned, even though we live in a world where everything is instant access now. I don't know. Now that I've thought about it, I cannot unthink it. Download Earnin on the App Store or Google Play. It's spelled like earning money without the G. Type in the Murder Diaries under podcast when you sign up. It will really help our show. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and don't affect the service. Available in select states. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details.
you know, Mackenzie turned out a certain way because her parents loved her the way that they did, unfortunately. I mean, if we're being honest, these parents love their child so much, but not enough to parent her.
Yeah, I think letting a 17-year-old move in with the boyfriend, for example, when your home life was fine is a little bit odd to me. They talk about, they were a little couple, they cooked together. And I mean, they did, but they probably would be married. And it's like, I don't know, dude.
Well, it's not even like letting your underage teenage daughter move in with her boyfriend, who is 3 years older and a legal adult. It's even the fact that the father says he has no problem with drugs. You can have your opinion on drugs, but to allow your child to do drugs and admit that you smoke with them is odd. And to be very aware of her driving under the influence, you know what I mean? Like, she lacked boundaries whatsoever. She lacked rules and regulation. And when you have a child like that, they're going to be messy and feel like they can get away with anything because they have.
A bit entitled. Yes. I do want to specify that her dad in the interview of the documentary did say he thinks that weed is better than alcohol, better than smoking the other crap. So he says he did not have a problem with her smoking weed. And I think that they were pleased to at least know what their daughter was up to, but didn't provide perhaps
structure,
the guidance to it. Right. The structure, the like, hey, listen, thank you for being honest with me. Here's like how you're going to be safe. Like, please don't post yourself smoking in the car. Because she did. It appears that she may have been driving, or that there are at least videos of her driving and smoking.
Countless videos.
That seems silly, though.
That's what's insane to me.
Yeah, there's just a lot of car and weed videos. Very, very odd. The detective who went through her phone does specifically say driving and smoking. And one of the videos they show, she's in a car smoking.
And look, like, I want to clarify, like, this is not me on my high horse saying like, oh, weed is bad. This is me saying like, as a parent, she's a child and he knows she's doing things that are illegal, which is driving under the influence, and doesn't seem to have a problem with it. And that's where I think, okay, like, she is the way she is because they allowed it to happen. I feel like we see nowadays a lot of parents being held accountable for the actions that their children have done. Like, when it comes to like guns, like if the parent bought the gun and the child goes and shoots someone, the parent is now being the one who is taken to jail. Well, maybe if your daughter is driving under the influence and you provided the alcohol or you knew certain things were happening, like maybe you bear some sort of responsibility as well.
I always lean towards giving a bit of grace. I wonder, did he know? Yes, he knew she was smoking. Did he know she would smoke when she drives? They seem really close, so maybe. But I'm also thinking of a case, Natalie, and I've talked to you about this case. It's very close to me, so I'm going to keep some privacy there. But there was a case of a hit and run where the dad was really much so framed as complicit in a cleanup effort, which was 100% not the case. And there are reasons that I know that. So it just makes me wonder, like, yes, these parents are being painted as very complicit, but I also wonder how much wool was Mackenzie pulling over their eyes or not. That's just one of the many things I still question in the case.
We'll never really know. But while we are on the topic of Mackenzie's parents, what did you think about that moment in the documentary? It's from court when everyone has a moment to speak in front of the judge and have their piece heard. And Mackenzie's mom goes up to the microphone and starts speaking, and she's cut off by the judge because the judge says, I'm hearing a lot about your daughter and not anything about the two victims whose lives were lost. And then her mom starts talking about Dom, and Davion's brought up, and the mom says, oh, well, he was a new friend. And the judge cuts in again, which I love this judge because she wasn't going to let that fly in her court. The judge cuts in and says, so does it make it any different that he's a new friend? His life was still lost. And I just think like she put her foot in her mouth, but it also shows that she was there to make sure that her daughter's innocence was heard versus, oh my God, my daughter killed these two sons, these two boys that will never get to grow up and have their own families or grow up and have their own careers and their lives. Like, how could she not think about that either? It felt so selfish.
It is just one of those things where you are innocent until proven guilty. And I don't think that when she spoke that was held in that court, to be honest. I think that also I understood what the mom meant by he's a new friend. It came off so wrong and it should not have been said like that. I think it was said like that because she was nervous and that is on her. You're a grown adult. You got to get it together. And maybe the judge, and this is her right in her court, didn't want to hear about Mackenzie or anything in her favor. I believe that's supposed to be Mackenzie's right, if I'm not wrong. But I think, and this is why you don't want to do this in a court of law, because no one's going to be thinking and trying to get through your words, but I'm just responding to what I personally think she meant. I think what she meant by new friend, meaning I didn't know him a lot, so she felt a little bit more uncomfortable trying to say anything about him. But I am with you that it kind of comes off selfish.
A little flippant too.
Like right or wrong, I think that is what she meant as to why she wasn't speaking on them. If I was that mother, with the families in the courtroom, and these families, by the way, are effectively during this trial, the relationships are changing with Mackenzie's family and the victims' families, specifically Dom's, very much so. They began by sitting next to each other. And then as things came out, it was like, oh, whoa, Mackenzie actually killed my brother, my son. So I think perhaps she was feeling extremely uncomfortable even mentioning their names in that court because their families are right there. And I think it probably felt like a rock and a hard place. But at the end of the day, you can acknowledge that in your statement to the families. I loved your son. I whatever you want to say, but also centering it around yourself is wrong. So I think like maybe just like don't speak. I don't know. Like I don't know how she was going to come out of that situation winning, because I don't think the families would have wanted her talking to them. Apparently, Mackenzie also met with at least Dom's dad once to express her remorse. There's a lot of things that obviously happened like off camera, but they don't buy it any longer. Not after the trial.
Dom's father and his sister were more open to having a relationship with Mackenzie after the crash happened. And I think they saw her as a grieving partner to their loved one. I mean, they were together for 4 years. They didn't know all the details. And then when everything came out during the trial, that's when they realized, oh, there's a lot more to this story. And how could we even continue this relationship?
You know what I want to know more about? The slipper. I need to know more about the slipper that was trapped under the pedal when it got there. I'm not saying, ooh, the slipper slipped and caused this, but
I feel like the slipper is going to turn into like the owl from the staircase. I think people are making a bigger thing of it than it really is. But what I have to say about this slipper is, of course, Mackenzie was wearing slippers that were like fuzzy and big.
That's how I felt.
She looks like she would be the girl who wears Cookie Monster pants and eats hot Cheetos. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's like the vibe. That's the vibe. So like, it so makes sense that she was wearing like these fuzzy slippers.
Yes. You know what you talking about that reminds me of is Rosie. Because she is a similar vibe. And she says that they were kind of stoners. And that was like, I think the image that not only were they just like having fun and I think really did enjoy each other's companies and were besties once they finally started talking in person, which by the way, it cracks me up that they would comment and DM on Instagram and were Snapchatting each other before they had ever even spoken in person. We just did not have that kind of experience in high school. So it's just kind of funny that these kids graduating in the 2020s, like, yeah, they have social media and they might connect that way. First, you never know. Like, oh yeah, I know you through so-and-so, kind of like, I know you're friends with so-and-so. Like, let me just follow you. So interesting. But yeah, anyways, she says that, quote, we were stoners a little bit. And I think that, again, that was an image that they worked really hard to portray because as we know, Rosie had a lot of followers.
I think she said, 250K when I met Mackenzie, like 250,000 followers.
Yeah. And she calls herself a model with no further context. Are you just calling yourself an Instagram model? Because that's very like 2012 through like 14 before we started calling people like influencers. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're an Instagram model or they're like a Tumblr girl or whatever, right? So I'm like, what does she mean? She wanted to be a model like me.
I had a few TikToks pop up on my feed about Rosie after watching the crash. And apparently she has Pilates account now. And a lot of people are questioning whether or not they are going to continue watching her videos and doing her exercises because they didn't like the way that she was this like hyper loyal figure to Mackenzie and refused to talk to the police during the investigation. They just felt like she presented herself as a very complex character in this case.
I chuckled when the detective said, oh, I'd love to hear what she had to say. Again, she did not speak much or at all to law enforcement. And I have this note, Rosie talking for Netflix, but not law enforcement. Loyal queen or hiding something?
Maybe both.
I do wonder too, is it both? What has Mackenzie told her or not? And I believe whatever Mackenzie has told her, as one of Mackenzie's best friends, she's choosing to believe that. And that's just kind of that for Rosie. I think she's sort of sitting comfortably with what it is that she's believing and being very loyal to Mackenzie. And yet again, Mackenzie is a very lucky girl to have that kind of support.
The relationship between Mackenzie and Rosie is interesting because she sort of is also being enabled by Rosie, right? Like the protection that she affords her, she becomes this like emotional translator for the audience of what Mackenzie was going through. It just was a little bit shocking that she could have lost half her friend group because they say Rosie describes, their friend group. It was Mackenzie, it was Davion, it was Dom, Rosie, and then Rosie's boyfriend. And half of the group passed away in that accident. Another member is in jail because of it. And it's just Rosie and her boyfriend left over. And she's still defending her. And they partied together just a couple short months after the deaths, full of ghoulish makeup, which was brought up in court. I don't know, maybe they really are different wings of the same bird. They're very, very similar. Like you need both of the wings, right? But one's over here, one's over here, but it's attached to the same bird. Like you're going to the same place.
I have to wonder what Bubba thinks about Rosie's loyalty. Because, of course, we see him in the documentary too, and he seems to be in the same camp, but just in a bit of a different way. He was just a little bit more factual.
He felt more neutral.
Yeah, more neutral, more just straightforward, answering the questions that the producers were asking him in his interview. Rosie just seemed to have a little bit more of an agenda to get her personal perspective out there and expressed.
I appreciate it that they gave Bubba some airtime because it was starting to feel like the documentary was so focused on Mackenzie and Dom that Davion was an afterthought in his own death. And Bubba was his close friend. They were on football together. And he was able to bring in that perspective of who Dom was in a social setting and who he was like as a friend. Obviously, we heard from Davion's father and his sister, but, we really didn't get to hear as much about him. And it almost felt like a Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman situation where everyone was talking about Nicole when 2 lives were lost. I appreciate that they made sure to give airtime to learning about who Davion was as a person, as a friend, as a son.
He was beloved. His sister Divine, queen, absolute queen for her brother. She is fiercely protective of his memory. She does not care about anything Mackenzie has to say. And in fact, when Mackenzie DM'd her, she did not respond. And I think that is not that it matters what I think, but this is our pod. It's totally her right. She said, I didn't feel like I needed to talk to the person who killed my brother. And that was just flat out, not on purpose. So no matter what it was to her, she didn't think that just because you're sorry doesn't mean that I need to respond. Period.
And then when Mackenzie apologized in court, the documentary cut to Davion's sister, and she says, that was the worst apology I've ever heard in my life. Like, she just did not want to hear it, and rightfully so.
We love Divine. Also, what we hear from Davion's father sort of echoes what you were mentioning, Natalie, about it showing, like who he was as a friend, as an athlete, which unfortunately his athletic career was cut a little too short in high school when he tore his ACL. But his dad told him one time, essentially telling him, like, these friends just aren't good for you. It seemed like his father felt like this is really a mismatch for you. And he goes so far as to say, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I think that's a little dramatic for a teenager. Now, Davion was 19, but he still was in high school and graduated a little earlier for his grade. So he's still, acting like a high schooler. And it's harder for you to, in high school, I think, pinpoint who might not be that great. I remember by early-ish 20s, finally being able to turn around and see kind of who was not great to be around and who was kind of a little bit trouble. And I think for Davion, it wouldn't have meant that he was going to turn out to also, be getting into a little bit of mischief or trouble. So it seemed a tiny bit dramatic, but not wrong necessarily.
No, it wasn't wrong.
Anyways, as of last month, April 2026, Mackenzie's requesting a review of her murder convictions. The prosecutors are supposedly urging the court to fully dismiss the case because her attorneys missed the initial 1 year, 365-day statutory filing deadline. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Natalie and I will be watching this case for sure. By the way, they missed that statutory deadline only by 1 day.
That's literally their job. How did they miss that?
Literally their job.
Be sure to watch The Inventor Out for Blood in Silicon Valley on HBO Max for next week's conversation. And then as a reminder, our schedule is Mondays, Tragic Hollywood, Tuesdays, DOCUFILES, and Thursdays, a true crime case that needs your attention.
Make sure to follow us on all of our socials and subscribe on YouTube at the Murder Diaries Pod or Podcast. And as always, thanks for being here.
Bye.
Look, if there is one thing about me, it's that I hate waiting. Hold music, triggering. If it was a person, they would definitely be blocked. Earnin, on the other hand, would not be blocked. Earnin is an app, not a bank, that allows you to get up to $150 a day, up to $1,000 between paychecks. Tips are optional, and standard transfers take just 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers start at $3.99 and cap at $5.99. 5 million people are already using Earnin. Time just feels different when you're not waiting around to make moves. Getting paid twice doesn't make money scarce. It just feels that way. And with Earnin, it doesn't have to be like that. If you think about it, it is kind of odd that we have to wait to get the money that we've already earned, even though we live in a world where everything is instant access now. I don't know. Now that I've thought about it, I cannot unthink it. Download Earnin on the App Store or Google Play. It's spelled like earning money without the G. Type in the Murder Diaries under podcast when you sign up. It will really help our show. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and don't affect the service. Available in select states. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details.